Sentinel Online. Now loading the Geekcast radio network of podcasts.
GeekCastRadio.com presents the Geekcast Radio Top 100 Animated Series of All Time. Steve Megatron Phillips, Mike GFG1 Blanchard, Kevin Optimus Solo Thompson, and Terra Rising Star Blair.
And so, having disposed of the countdown, exit our heroes through the front door, stage right. Welcome to the GCRN Top 100 Animated Series Countdown Wrap-Up episode. I am one of your hosts, TFG1 Mike. Joining me is Kevin Optimus Solo Thompson. Hello, sir.
Good day.
Steve Megatron Phillips, hello.
Where am I?
Unfortunately, you're in Flint, Michigan.
Yes.
Don't expose that secret.
And from This Week in Geek, Mike the Bastard Man Dodd.
Yes, delicious. Hello.
How's it going, guys?
Oh, it's going.
I'm Gary Busey.
Try not to date this as much as possible, Mike.
Don't worry, it'll be posted on my Facebook wall every Thursday night.
Oh my god. And today we're going to cover all the feedback and end our countdown project. Kevin, since this is your thing, where do you want to start with it?
I think we should just get right into some lists that we've come up with as far as shows we didn't think should be on the countdown, shows that should have been on the countdown, et cetera, et cetera. And I think let's start with where we shows that we think should rank lower or higher before we get to the shows that we either think should or should not be on the countdown. Mike, why don't you go ahead with Mike? God, now there's two Mikes.
Yeah.
Blanchard, Blanchard, go ahead with your shows that you would have liked to see rank lower. Ones that we had ranked too high.
Transformers G1.
Oh my god, who the fuck are you?
No, okay. Alright, but seriously, top 100, it should be somewhere like 50 or 60. It should not be number 3 out of the top 100 all-time best animated cartoons.
Agreed.
Totally agreed. In fact, the most intelligent thing you've ever said. Mark this moment.
Do you have any other ones, Mike?
Really, no. I mean, not really. I guess Powerpuff Girls probably should have ranked higher above some of the other Cartoon Network shows like Dexter's and Johnny Bravo, stuff like that. But I mean, that was the only one I really had like a major issue with of it ranking too high.
I had actually 5 that I picked out that I thought were too high. We'll bypass Transformers since obviously you already talked about that one. I think Super Friends at 40 was a little too high. And I know there was some issues as far as us including everything together, blah, 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 but I don't care if you take them all together, take one separately. It shouldn't be top 50, I don't think, compared to a lot of the other superhero shows. I think Thundercats was too high at 31. I love Thundercats, but obviously you heard my thoughts on that during the podcast. I just think some of these 80s action cartoons were ranked too high. Another one of those was Mask at 42. I don't think either one of those should have been in the top 50, really. I think they should be on the list, but not top 50. And my last one was She-Ra. I think 59 was too high for that. The only way I'm okay with She-Ra being on the list is if it's in the 90s somewhere.
Wow, really? I think it deserves at least top 70.
Okay, I'll give you 70. I just thought 59 a little too high. But I don't know. I mean, I love She-Ra, and I think it's one of the best, types of cartoons, of its style ever. But I don't know. 59 just seems a little bit. I had to come up with a 5th one, so that was my 5th one. Steve, any of the ones that you felt were too high on our list?
You mean too low? Oh, no. Never mind.
No, I mean too high.
Yeah, too high.
But, yes, I will say Transformers Generation 1 would be my first. I'd have to say Pokemon. Just
Okay.
because. Don't even ask. Anyways, and I'm going to say Mask.
At 42 is a little too high. I agree with you.
Yes, I think it should be in the 60s, honestly. I don't think it should be in the 90s, like,
Thank God.
like fucking IGN, but I don't think it deserves to be in the top 50.
Right. And for those of you wondering, Pokemon was ranked 39th, I believe, so
Yeah.
that's one of the ones he was saying was too high.
And I would say the other two that I didn't really, think needed to be as high as they were, I'd say probably Mario Brothers should be a little bit lower.
Agreed.
And then for my final one, I'd have to say freaking Beavis and Butthead.
Freaking Beavis and Butthead.
Yes.
And they came in at 25 for those of you curious.
Yes. Those would be the ones I would say need to be lower on the list.
Mike, did you have comments on that?
Not really. I'm all right with that. What about you, Dodd? Do you have any that you thought should be lower?
Yeah, there were a couple. So let's stir the controversy pot. Family Guy should have been ranked way lower. I agree it should be in the top 50, but not where it's at. It's at, what, 23, Kevin? Something like that?
21.
That 21, unfortunately.
I think the first 3 seasons were exceptionally brilliant. After that, it's a formulaic show. In fact, sit down with a stopwatch sometime, and you can time things out to about 1:30 every time. It's just not a good show anymore. And if you don't like it, suck my dick. Another one that I didn't much care for was the Super Friends. I think that should have been a little bit lower as to where it was. I mean, I used to sit around in my college dorm room and laugh at this because it was so stupid. How that made it in the top 50 is clearly an error in math. Sorry, Kevin. It's a terrible show. Another one, once again, stirring the controversy pot. I don't get the love for Rocky and Bullwinkle. I really think it definitely deserves to be in the top 100, but it sat pretty high up, didn't it, Kevin?
Yeah. Rocky and Bullwinkle was the top 20. It was top 20, 26.
Okay, so just edged out of top 25. Another one, Scooby-Doo. I do not get where the love for this franchise comes from. It's insipid. It's just, no, it's terrible. What's wrong with you people? Although Velma's kind of hot, just kind of saying, her and Daphne. Anyway,
but she is a nerd.
But she is a nerd, and I would do deeply pornographic things to her. So moving on. My last one, which, like you didn't see this one coming, Transformers. Yeah, no way this is number 3 of all time.
No. Yeah, we all agreed on that. It's like, because I was cringing throughout the whole top 20. I was like, oh my god. I don't mind if it would have come in at like, I mean, hell, even switch it with
Beast Wars.
Oh, okay. Well, I was gonna go with something in the actual top 20. Like, switch it with Tiny Toons, or switch it with Looney Tunes, or find some way to move Transformers down.
Transformers belongs in the top 30, but not in the top 10. No way.
No.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one. I think, in somewhere in the 30 range would probably be a good spot for it.
I mean, its animation was inconsistent. The voice acting, for the most part, was okay, but there was never any story development. It was a thing developed to sell toys. And I know I've been reading some of the comments on, I think it was Toon Zone, was it?
Yep.
You guys have been linked to?
Yep.
Saying it's going to be ruled by 80s cartoons and toy-centric ones. This is, I think, one of the flaws of our list to have Transformers ranked so highly.
Oh yeah.
I mean, out of the toy selling cartoons of the 80s, it was one of the best ones, but I agree with what you're saying. What about if we flip it the other way, stuff that we had too low that should have been higher?
Please let me start this one.
Go ahead.
Okay, Neon Genesis Evangelion. 100? Are you fucking kidding me?
Actually, it was 99.
Well, whatever. It should have been in the top 50 at least.
I think That's what I've heard from everybody that knows anything about that show.
Yeah, because it's a great story. I mean, wonderful animation, and it was self-contained. This fact, lasting 26 episodes and 2 movies, well, depending on how you want to look at it, it's a fantastic franchise, and it really told a deeply emotional, moving story. And I think it deserved more love than what it got. So that's one that I disagree with. Death Note, I think, should have placed a little bit higher. You can tell I have a bit of an anime bias, but let me get to that. Death Note, once again, the first half of the series, fantastic, great, suspenseful, very cool, awesome theme song, by the way. I think it deserved a spot in the top 60, which I think it did. I would have liked to have seen it maybe inch top 40.
Yeah.
But it's still a great show. I think it deserved a little bit more. Robotech was another one I was surprised didn't rank higher.
Yeah, I thought more people would vote for that one. That one's just kind of one that everybody accepted as being a pretty good show.
Yeah, I mean, great animation, good storyline, and just, it was a lot of fun for what it was, and it was very accessible. Plus, yes, it did sell toys, but it had more heart than Transformer, which I felt maybe should have helped it rank higher. Another one I would have liked to have seen in the top, I'm going to argue for top 25, Reboot. Mm-hmm. I think should have been higher because, once again, great story development once you get into the second half of the second season. The show lasted 40-something episodes. Yeah, they were spaced out over a number of years, but still a fantastic show overall. Though it maybe wouldn't get that high because it didn't have a true conclusion, because there should have been a 4th season, or a 5th season or whatever. Mm-hmm. My last one, I think the critics should have placed a little bit higher, too, because I felt the writing on that show is phenomenal.
Yeah, a lot of people like the write on that one, and it was 68th on our list. I could see that being a little bit closer to the 50 mark, somewhere around there, whether it's on the top side of the 50 or bottom side of 50. I could see it closer to that.
And my last one, I know I'm going a little bit above about the 5, was King of the Hill. That's a show that has some of the best writing and character arcs in animation, I think, for a primetime show, and I really think it deserved to be a bit higher than that. I think the show's won awards, hasn't it, Kevin?
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
So I think it should place higher than...
It was 41. Where would you put it?
41. I'd put it probably top 30. Somewhere very, very high 30s, maybe 31, or at the max I wouldn't put it above 27.
Okay, that makes sense. And obviously we had a kind of a big debate on King of the Hill, Family Guy, and a few of the other primetime shows as far as which ones were better. And like I said in the episode, I found that nobody seems to like all of them. You either are a fan of one or a fan of the other when it comes to some of these adult shows.
Yeah, because I find it depends a lot on your humor, or basically what you find funny or what connects with you as a viewer. I think a lot of people dig Family Guy because it's stupid, irreverent humor. Whereas with King of the Hill, I think if you've got a stronger tie to your family or you're more into the obscure humor, that's where you might find it a little bit better than Family Guy. Plus, if you actually want a show that's halfway well written.
And then you have Futurama for, a little bit different humor as well.
Yeah, which is weird because I'm not a big fan of Futurama, but I appreciate what it's done. Right. And I'm okay with where it sits on the list, too.
Mike, did you have any that you thought we had a little too low that should have ranked higher?
Beast Wars should easily be top 20, top 15 because of the writing and the storytelling. Yogi Bear should be higher. Flintstones should be way higher.
Well, they can't be way higher because there's only 8 spots left for it to go, but I agree with what you're saying.
Yogi Bear, really?
Yes.
All those Hanna-Barbera shows just seem to blend together, though.
No,
I mean, it was funny. But
I think where I go with Yogi Bear, or take your pick, Yogi Bear, Huckleberry Hound, they're all kind of the same shows like you're saying, but where I get those two a little bit more credit was because they were kind of the pioneers of that whole thing. And, they did have a successful formula. I wouldn't say maybe some of the other ones that came later, like, Quick Draw and Jabberjaw and Magilla Gorilla or whatever, because it's the same formula. But just for being the first ones, that's where I give Yogi Bear and Huckleberry Hound a little more credit.
I would say Yogi Bear more than Huckleberry Hound, but I can see where you're kind of coming from.
Yeah. I think you need to switch. I think we need to switch Doug with Rugrats. Put Rugrats at 70 and put Doug at 46, because I'm sorry, Rugrats at 46, that's just horrible. I think IGN
got that. I disagree with you.
No,
Rugrats was a good show.
I think Rugrats was the more popular show. It was the bigger franchise. It was more successful. I don't know. I mean, I'm not hating on Doug, but I actually prefer Rugrats higher.
I think Rugrats had a different vibe going for it in terms of what the story it was trying to tell.
It's a cartoon for. It's specifically a cartoon for kids.
You're anti anything that was directly for kids, which is retarded.
No, I'm not anti anything that was directly for kids, but I mean, this is a cartoon with fucking babies, for Christ's sake.
Yeah, but it's still written by people our age.
To each their own, though. I mean, I personally cannot stand Rugrats. It was more so one of those things that if nothing else was on, I'd watch it, and I would prefer Doug, but at the same time, I can see why it landed where it did.
Yeah, that's why I don't have a problem with it. I don't necessarily love either show. I wasn't a big fan of any of those shows in that little time span with the same time Bobby's World was out and all those. I actually liked Bobby's World a little bit better, but
oh yeah.
I mean, I didn't love any of those shows, but I have no problem with Rugrats being the higher one because it seemed like it was the more successful show,
I think,
franchise, etc.
For me, I think either Doug needs to be in the 46th spot and Rugrats at 70, or put Bobby's World in Rugrats' place and, take one of the other ones off or something. But, like, during that time period, I could easily watch more episodes of Bobby's World and Doug rather than fucking Rugrats.
I'd say Doug deserves a much higher spot because that's another show that years later, and it's not just about holding up. You can see a lot of subtle subtext in it. It's a really well-written show, and Rugrats, well-written also, but really weird at the same time. So, I don't know. I think I'm okay where it sits, but I think Doug should have placed higher.
How about any other ones, or was that your last one, Mike?
That was my last one. I only had the 5 there.
Steve, I know what one of yours is going to be, but any other ones, any of yours that you thought should be ranked higher?
Yes, I'll end with that one last. I would definitely agree with Dodd on Reboot. I easily think that should have been in the top 25 just because it was such a great show and the first CGI animated series.
Technically, that's the first Tron ripoff cartoon.
Technically, but not.
You could say influence, but definitely not a ripoff.
No, not. If you've actually watched the show,
I don't mean it as a negative against it, but I'm just saying, going back, like I have been the last couple of weeks here since Tron and Tron Legacy have come out, going back and watching the first film and watching Legacy, and then seeing a couple of clips of Reboot and remembering what I remember watching of Reboot. I'm sorry, Reboot is takes direct plot type stuff from Tron.
Well, anything's going to borrow from something else, and it's
seen Reboot?
Back to the Future.
Yes,
and
I've seen Reboot.
He has not fully seen Reboot.
It's been a while, but I've seen like the first couple seasons.
Then you should know they draw nothing from each other. Other than
going inside a computer, that draws from
inside
Tron.
the game.
So, Mike, are you saying you can compare, like, that's like saying something happens in space, so they must be related. That's like comparing Star Trek and Battlestar Galactica. They both happen in space. They both have people fighting aliens, but they're not alike.
I want a Star Wars Star Trek crossover.
I want to punch you in the face, but
I agree.
Anyways,
keep going, Steve.
I would have said that the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2003 series should have ranked higher.
Okay.
Yeah.
At least in the 40s instead of the 50s, because, I mean, I know it was borderline, but it was such a great continuation and redesign of the original show that it just, I don't know, they kept true to a lot of the old things, but they also influenced it with new modern day animation writing styles and everything else, and updated it to the point where even if you were an older fan, you would love it as well.
Yeah.
And like I said in the episode, the one thing that the 2003 Turtles series did was it combined the comics and the 87 cartoon together to make that cartoon.
Yes.
Yes.
No comments on your comment.
Moving on.
But another one I'd say is The Critic, because I just love the humor in that show, and the fake movie trailers, and the celebrity guest spots in it, and I don't know, just the whole thing was hilarious to me. Batman Beyond is one of them. I think that should have been a little bit closer to the, I don't know, between 10 and 15.
Yeah.
A little bit closer in there, just because it's such a great show and it picks up from where Batman the Animated Series left off. and it's still the ending to all the Superman, Justice League Unlimited, and you get the tying up of the ultimate character, the Joker. And then my
favorite villain of all time.
Yeah,
or Megatron, obviously, but
obviously Megatron. But if I had to say superhero villain, I'd have to say the Joker, hands down. This Joker, anyway. Yeah. But yes, and my last show would be Beast Wars. I think that there's no way in hell the original Transformers should have gotten higher than this on the list. I think that's bullshit. I think Beast Wars should have been in the top 15, easy. In my opinion, I would say it should be in the top 10, but I know it's a little biased, so I'd say top 15. But
we did have a pattern of putting originals higher than all the remakes, though. I would say the remake of He-Man's better than the original. And I know some people would say the remake of, like you said, Turtles was better, but it seemed like the original always won out on our list.
But
I'm not saying that's right.
There's no way the original Transformers should have beat Beast Wars. That's bullshit.
Yeah.
Megatron from Beast Wars would so just demolish the original cast. I mean, look what he did to Prime's face.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of the ones you guys have said. I'll try to at least touch on a few other ones that I kind of had floating around on my list. I know it doesn't have very far to go since it was ranked at number 4, but I think Looney Tunes should be higher. It only has 3 spots to go, but I would put it ahead of just about everything. I would put, actually, Fat Albert and the Cosby Kids higher than 93. I just think it was such a unique show, and, everything that Bill Cosby does is basically genius. So I was glad it made the list, but I just wanted to see it maybe in the 70s somewhere instead of 93. Another one I had, Danger Mouse, which was at 69. I think that should be a little bit higher, but that would probably only happen if we had more of a UK crowd voting, I guess. Popeye, I don't need it much higher. I just like it. It was 53. I think it deserves top 50. So just a couple spots higher would make me happy with that one. And I don't know. I could see Tom and Jerry being higher. I understand what you're saying, Birdman. But being at 33, I don't know. To me, Tom and Jerry screams top 25 for me.
Fair enough.
But so those were some of the ones that I thought could have been a little bit higher. We're going to eventually get to shows that we think should have been on the countdown that didn't make it, but in order to get more shows in the countdown, we have to take some out of it. So let's first start with shows that should be removed from the top 100. Let's start with Blanchard, since he hasn't talked in a while. What are some shows, 5 shows if you have that many, that should be removed from the top 100?
Captain Planet.
What the fuck?
Captain Planet. Okay, first of all, before you go on a Birdman rage here on me, I absolutely loved Captain Planet in 1990. I had all the toys. I had everything from that cartoon. But just overall quality and just looking back on it, that cartoon is nothing but environmental preaching. That's all it is.
Not like that's a bad thing. Well,
I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but just looking at it now, it is so outdated. Even in its time, it wasn't that great.
It was pretty popular at its time, though.
And I don't deny that. I was one of its biggest supporters at its time, but just looking back on it, and it's like, oh my god, I cannot watch the show. It is like so robot. This show is like so robotic. It just has that it doesn't even have a free-flowing plot throughout each episode. It has like point A, point B, point C, and they're not at all connected. They find a way to connect them, but it just it is a great cartoon for what it was. I will agree with that. If maybe we were doing a top 200, I could see it making a list, but not top 100. And this is where I only had 2 written down. This is where the great debate lies, and this is where Kevin's going to have to really go off on me. Everybody knows that has listened to Tooncast that there is one show that will never, ever, ever, as long as I'm in charge of Tooncast, and that's my show and Tooncast Beyond, that will ever be covered on that podcast. And that is fucking Ren and Stimpy. My John K. hate aside, I went back this past week and I tried watching I watched at least 7 different episodes of this show. And every single episode I saw made me want to puke up all over my keyboard. I hate this fucking show. It does not need to be on this fucking countdown.
Oh, it is not that fucking bad.
It does. Yes, it is. Literally, I kid you not, Steve. I was physically grossed out by the animation of this show. I don't see how Ren and Stimpy ever helped animation at all.
Because it pushed the envelope, like Kevin said. It really did a lot to kind of up the bar. So shows like South Park could come along. Shows like Family Guy could come along. I mean, sure, it was wrapped up in a kid's show, but it definitely deserves to be on the list, and it deserves to be top fucking 25. It did a lot.
I wouldn't say 25.
No, it needs to be in the fucking 90s.
It's really important.
Yes.
It's easy top 50.
No, it's not top 50 at all.
Talking the later series that they had on Spike TV where
that was fucking stupid.
No, I'm talking about the original series. When I went back to do research on this so I could be informed and I could watch, several different episodes, I went back to Wikipedia, I looked up the series schedule, I looked at 2 or 3 episodes from season 1, season 2, and season 3. And every single episode.
Then you sat down to watch them, already deciding that you were going to hate it.
No, I sat down to watch them, and I watched them, and as soon as, they pulled Ren's fucking eye apart to show his fucking eyeball and all his fucking veins, I literally almost puked all over my fucking keyboard. I'm not joking. It physically grossed me out. I don't get the humor in it. It's not my type of humor whatsoever. It is so fucking gross, and if it does deserve to be on a top 100 list, it deserves to be in the fucking 90s.
You have to set your personal bias aside, though, and realize
it wasn't. How am I using bias if something that I'm watching is going to make me physically fucking ill? That's not bias at all.
No, I'm saying to
how are you going to barf from watching a fucking cartoon? It's not like they were anally fucking each other in the middle of the screen.
I'm sure there's an episode of them doing that, though.
Maybe in Spike TV, but
even if you can't watch it, you got to respect what it was and what it did at the time.
It was a poorly made ripoff of Beavis and Butthead. You had these 2 fully animated characters in a 2D. You had these 2 fully animated characters in a 2D background setting. It's like if you meshed Mega Man Legends 3D graphics to the 2D Mega Man worlds. It just wouldn't work.
How many times do I have to explain to you that in order to rip something off, it has to come after it?
So if you're saying this, then that means that technically Tiny Toons is a 2-bit hack that came from Looney Tunes.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is. Because it came after Looney Tunes, and it's ripping Looney Tunes off.
No, it's not ripping Looney Tunes off. It has an original story with Looney Tunes characters in it, teaching them animation. There's a difference.
See, Mike, if you would have put this on your list that you just said it was too high, that's fine. But for you to say that this should be removed from the top 100 is an ignorant statement.
No, it's not.
It really is, because this show's culturally important. Shows like this need to happen to push the envelope of animation further, to push the boundaries of storytelling. Is it in good taste? No. Does it deserve to be where it is? Yeah. I mean, look at controversies in the film world. Think about where horror movies would be if we didn't have movies like Cannibal Holocaust or I Spit on Your Grave. Think about where it would be then. Yes, it's disgusting. Reprehensible even. But you need these movies to exist. Same with Ren and Stimpy. You need this animation to exist to see where you can go, to push boundaries.
I agree. Did you have anything else on that should be removed besides Captain Planet and Ren and Stimpy?
Let me look down the actual list here, because those are the only 2 that I actually wrote down.
Let's come back to you then in a second, and let's actually go to Steve. Anything that we should remove from our top 100?
Alrighty. This is what I'd put on there. And this is just my personal bias. I'm just going to admit that right up front.
These are ones that you think should be taken away from the top 100.
Yes, this is my personal bias. So, we go. Spider-Man, the 1960s.
I agree with that.
I could see that.
Just because the 70s one was more prominent than that one.
And we did have 4 different Spider-Man things or whatever on the countdown, so I could see us getting rid of the worst out of them, if that is the worst.
Yeah, and the other ones I could see why they placed where they did. This is where it's going to get worse. Captain Planet. And it's not because of the environment or any of that kind of stuff. I go back to looking at it now, And even looking at it then, it's, I don't know, just something about it. It's the same old song and dance over and over.
But how many of these shows fall victim to that, though?
True, but this one was really bad about it.
This is one of the ones we got blasted on the most in the comments that we'll get to a little bit later. So I can understand people saying that it should be removed. I thought about putting that one on my list here, but it didn't quite make it. But I can see where you're going with that, and I can see why both you guys had it on your list. What else do you got?
I got Magic School Bus, and that's more so just because I don't know I didn't see it as important as maybe Arthur.
Well, and it's kind of brought up what someone had suggested as far as like individually ranking different categories as a precursor to making the whole list. And if you're doing that, and if you're going off of educational ones, you got to put shows like Arthur and a couple of the other ones that we mentioned ahead of Magic School Bus. To me, that was the worst educational one we had on our list.
Really?
That's kind of what I thought.
I thought that one had a lot of fun to it, and I think it tried to teach kids something.
No, I agree with that.
More about moral lessons. I think, this is going to sound terribly ignorant, but at least Magic School Bus tried to add a little bit of real-world applicable science to it. Arthur was more about, hey, you shouldn't push people. Why? Because it's a douche thing to do. Whereas, hey, this is how blood works.
True. I guess that's a good point. I think we'd have to take a closer look at educational shows. I mean, I know Mike Blanchard, you didn't vote for any of them just because they were educational. And I think that's
it's not only educational. It's because it was also because of going back to regardless of the bias I put in my own personal list. It was like when you and I spent that 6-hour conversation that one night on Skype. It was going to besides the fact that it was an educational show, it was also going towards, is this a ranking, is this a top 100 worthy type of cartoon? And I just thought personally that none of the educational shows that we had on our master list of cartoons, they don't feel to me as their top 100 material.
But how do you determine that, though? Because we also didn't rank Schoolhouse Rock either, and that's a culturally important educational show.
Yeah, that one actually lost out in a tiebreaker for the 100th spot with Powerpuff Girls. Schoolhouse Rock. We mentioned the one we just talked about. My mind just left me.
Magic School Bus.
Magic School Bus and Arthur. There was other people that talked about. Was Hey Arnold educational? And that is not one I'm familiar with.
No.
Okay, not. Yeah, but there was a couple other ones that were just kind of, I don't know. Educational shows are kind of iffy. I think Schoolhouse. I would put Schoolhouse Rock on there before I put Magic School Bus.
Oh, hell yeah. That's one that's gone back.
Yeah. So, did you have any others, Steve?
Yes, I have two more. Beavis and Butthead, just because I can't stand it. It's just a bunch of guys going, And if they would just kept with that instead of doing the music videos in between, I would have been able to stand it a little bit more. And it's more so that 6th grade humor that you find funny back then, and it's not something that's, I don't know. I would more so flock to any of the newer adult programs than this.
That's fair. I mean, I still would put it on the list. I think that's kind of.
I'd still put it on there, but I think I'd put it towards the tail end.
Okay.
And then my last one, and this is just personal bias, and this is actually along your lines, Kevin. The Clone Wars 2003 series where they have the Gennady Tartakovsky animation style.
I actually agree with that, because that's the one I was going to mention when Kevin asked me if I thought of any others. But go ahead, Steve.
I don't necessarily disagree with the writing or the voicing or any of that kind of stuff. It's the animation that drives me batshit crazy. I can understand it in things like Dexter and Johnny Bravo and that kind of stuff. But when you get to Star Wars, I'm sorry, it should either be 3D or it should be actual fucking people.
I actually, I'm a humongous Star Wars fan, and that's one thing that just turned me off of that series, and I've obviously made no secret about the fact that I hate that style of animation. So
see, I'm really a big fan of it. I own original animation cells from that show. I own the ARC Trooper and Count Dooku. I think the animation, that's the beauty of Star Wars. It can be interpreted into so many different media, and with the animation style it took, it worked. Was it the prettiest? No. Was it a risk? Yes.
Yeah.
But I think it deserves to be on the list, though.
The other thing for me with that series is because, and I know later, like season 2 and season 3, they lengthened the episodes, but like that first season, like 3-minute shorts, I was like, oh god, that just took me out of it so much.
That part didn't bother me so much. Like I said, I know it's just my personal take on the animation, and I just can't get. That's the one style of animation I just can't get past. Although I do say I do like it better in Star Wars than I did on some of the other shows that he's done.
Yeah, I will say, just looking back through the list here, I honestly don't think Aladdin needs to be on here.
I actually have that on my list as well.
I'll let you talk about it, but I mean, just going through our list and going through all the cartoons that we ranked, I don't see Aladdin as one of the 100 best cartoons ever.
Well,
I'd say it's very pretty, but that's about all you can say about it.
Yeah, it's pretty, and whatever. It's the same thing with all Disney stuff. Make your original movie. Don't make sequels. Don't make series out of them. Don't do anything but the original movie. I know there are some rare exceptions, but to me, even if you're just comparing it to other Disney shows, it doesn't stack up. So,
and I would keep the same numbers. Just now that I'm just thinking about it, I would keep the same ranking numbers of where Harvey Birdman and Space Ghost are, but I would replace them with their original cartoons, Birdman and the original Space Ghost cartoon. I wouldn't have the Adult Swim versions.
I personally wouldn't have either of them, actually. They're just not very good. I don't see them contributing anything to the wide scope of animation.
Well, and a lot of people say actually what they actually did more to hurt the franchises they were making fun of or doing whatever, Hanna-Barbera, this or that. Like, they actually did more to hurt the original shows than help them out.
Yeah.
So what are the other ones that you had that you think should be removed, Birdman?
The ones I had, and this will just be very quick. Super Friends, because, well, it's pretty lame in writing, it's stupid, it's racist.
It's nothing but Darkseid wanting to fuck Wonder Woman.
See,
oh my god.
I'm going to refrain from this one. Tom and Jerry, and I know that's going to draw some ire. I think a lot of the Hanna-Barbera cartoons, they just seem the same, which kind of goes to Huckleberry Hound. Yogi Bear, I'm glad's on the list, but not Huckleberry Hound as something important. Scooby-Doo, once again, where the fuck does the love for this franchise come?
I love it, but...
You're terrible. My other one is Johnny Bravo. How the hell did this rank in the top 50?
I'm so glad whenever I've come across someone that doesn't like that show.
It's the same style of irreverent humor, but for no reason. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's got its moments where it does have its charm and its fun, but charm and fun is not enough to carry a show as one of the top 100 animated shows of all time. If we had a top 500 list, yeah, sure, but top 100,
yeah.
How did this rank higher than Magic School Bus?
Well, I had a couple that everybody else has already talked about, so I won't go into detail. I had Magic School Bus. I had Aladdin. Some of the ones that you guys didn't mention, I actually would not put the Carmen Sandiego animated series on the top.
I was going to agree with you on that, yeah.
Yeah.
If we're talking about kid shows or game shows and we're talking about the actual live-action game show, in some type of list that would fit it, fine, that's a great game show. But the animated series was pretty bad. I don't know. I don't know if people were mistaking the animated series for the game show, and that's why they voted for it. No way, not top 100. The other ones, I'll probably get killed by you guys, but I don't think at least one of them shouldn't be on, or the combination of either Captain N or the Super Mario Brothers Super Show. I don't think they both deserve to be in top 100.
I think if you put them lower, sorry to cut you off, Mike, but I think if you put them lower than what they actually are ranked at, instead of 78 and 67, if you put them at like 98 and maybe 88 or something like that, it would be okay, but they shouldn't be as high as they are.
If one of them's going to be on there, I think it should be Captain N, but that's just me.
Yeah, like, I'm a Nintendo nerd. I mean, I'm a games journalist. I make my living playing video games, and Super Mario, it's pretty stupid. You want a good laugh, go watch the Nostalgia Critics thing on. It's pretty funny. But it makes no sense. Captain N at least had an interesting narrative. Is it deserving to be on the list? I'd say it's kind of sketchy at best.
Yeah.
But at least it tried to do something interesting with the idea of video game characters. I mean, I'm happy the Mega Man show didn't make it, because that shows it's batshit stupid and other times frankly amazing. But I don't disagree with either of those.
And my other one, I'm kind of cheating too, because this other one is a combo, and it kind of goes to our 80s action bias. I have a trio of shows, and I don't care. At least one or two of them should not have made the list, and that's Cops and Brave Star. And I guess you could throw Silverhawks in there, even though my personal bias would put it in the top 100. But I don't think all three of them deserve to be top 100.
And again, I would I'll even argue for Silverhawks if you maybe ranked it somewhere else within the top 100, whether it would be lower or, you know what I mean?
Well, if I had to pick one to boot out, it would be Cops first, even though I love Cops.
Oh, yeah.
And then Brave Star, and then Silverhawks. But the three of them all making the top 100 really exposes our bias.
Yeah, because it shows that we're focused on 80s and if it sold a toy.
And action, yeah. So now that we've eliminated some shows from our top 100, hypothetically, I guess we have some space for some ones to make it that didn't. I don't care who wants to start with some
I'll
shows.
let Steve start with this one.
Steve, shows that should have made the top 100 that didn't.
All right. Some of these are going to come as no surprise. Beast Machines.
Just because that brings up a thing that's been kind of debated a couple times as far as ones that people might have lumped in with other ones, whether that's fair or not.
I don't think it's still fair because, I mean, technically you've got shows that continue other ones. I mean, but it's a completely different title change, different scenery. I mean, it's different situations. So, I mean, I think it should have been separate based on nothing in it is really the same, other than a few characters and some voice cast.
Right.
So I think it should have been on the list somewhere.
I actually always liked Beast Machines better than Beast Wars, so I have no problem with that.
I liked Beast Wars better, but I liked the background music to Beast Machines more, and some of the darkness of Megatron. It's just, I don't know, it's just awesome. Sonic the Hedgehog.
Which one?
The darker one, not the USA Cartoon Express one.
So the one from Saturday morning on ABC, the sad
Yes.
I completely agree.
That one was badass. And the theme song is just awesome.
And Urkel.
Yes, it had Urkel.
I was kind of surprised that at least a Sonic show did not make our top 100 just because there's a huge following for that, and I thought something would sneak in there, but so I have no problem with that.
I like, and Steve can continue in a second, but I like both of those series for two different reasons. The original one for its darkness and its storytelling, and the adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog for the sheer comedy that it was.
Oh yeah, I liked them both, but I mean overall I like this one the best.
Right.
What else you got?
My next one would be Mega Man.
Why, God, why?
Well, because it's better than Captain N or Super Mario Brothers or...
Two words for you, Steve. Cave robots.
So, they're cool.
No, Steve.
Yes, but they had a lot of the Beast Wars voice cast in it too, which is another reason. But I mean, it's still a more fun show than either one of those, and then a few other ones that shouldn't have been on the list. So I would say that one should be on there.
Okay.
And another one I've got is Transformers Animated.
Fuck, sorry.
You know you want to.
No, oh God, no! Don't.
I thought
pedo.
for a while that one was going to make our list just because of our, being from the Transformers group that we had, and I felt it was getting a lot of love. It actually only missed the list by a couple points. I thought it was going to actually make the list. I obviously haven't watched it because, again, I didn't care for the style right when it came out. But
yeah,
I can
biased against the style as well. But when you get past that, by the time it hits the third season, it hits strong.
Yeah.
The first two seasons are kind of a little bit weak, and the third season makes you want a fourth season, which does not happen. But still, it was a good show overall.
Yeah.
And I'd have to say my final choice, and I had two of them on there, but after deliberating between the two, I had G.I. Joe, the Deke series, and I only had it on there because it continued, despite what Mike says, so fuck you. And I'm saying Blanchard, not Dodd. And the other one that I'm going to have to go with is Sherlock Holmes in the 22nd Century.
So that's one that I've never watched.
See, it's a little bit more obscure, but it was on, it was another Deke production, but it was really well done animation and musically, and it takes Sherlock Holmes from his dead state, and they bring him back from the dead with some machine in the 22nd century to fight all these random, because obviously people are dumb in the 22nd century, and they need Holmes to help
apply
them.
his 18th century logic to things?
Because he can deduce things that these guys are idiots about. They're like, we got machines, it does it for us. But yeah, it's I like the show overall. I mean, it's pretty good even still today to watch it on YouTube or the Deke website.
I'll have to check it out. No, definitely some interesting choices, and I think some very legitimate choices. Blanchard, what do you have? What are we putting in the top 100 for you?
Beast Machines and Animated for the same. I mean, Beast Machines, yes, it is slightly different from Beast Wars, and yes, I love both of those series, but Beast Machines, that animation, outside of the overused fire effect, that animation is just so crisp. Even now, you look at that series, and it's just beautiful. Animated just because, like Steve said, at first he wasn't a fan of the style at first. I wasn't a fan of the entire show. And then I went back and I watched it from the beginning to the end. Shut up, Mike.
I was just coughing, sorry.
You're not allowed to cough.
Sure you are, liar. But overall, it has a really good story to it. It has, beginning, middle, end, and I think it deserves like a low spot. If I was going to rank between Beast Machines and Animated, I would say Animated probably in the 90s, and then Beast Machines at least top 50.
Top 50?
Yep.
Okay. What else you got?
That's really it. I mean, I agree with what some of you guys said. I will argue against Steve's Mega Man choice with James Bond Jr.
It was good, but the animation on that is way worse than Mega Man.
I know.
Birdman, how about some of the shows that you would be putting in the top 100 that we're missing? Let's appease the anime fans.
All right. Actually, I only have one anime show that I would put in. Ghost in the Shell Standalone Complex. Fantastic show, great storyline, wonderful animation, a little disjointed on characterization, but I felt like you learned everything despite it being very episodic. The Laughing Man saga I thought was tremendously cool. When the tanks die, oh, by the way, spoiler, it's sad. It's really sad when the Takakomas die. You're like, what the fuck? You can't do that. It's a great show. Definitely deserves to be in the top 100 somewhere. Another one, Goof Troop.
Yeah.
I thought the show had a lot of heart, and it was really well animated, too, I felt.
I almost put that on my list.
Another one, I've worked in many, many office cubicles, and I love the comic strip. Dilbert.
There we go.
That's great writing. Daniel Stern doing the voice for Dilbert, Chris Gould as Dogbert. Fun show. Should have lasted longer than what it did, but I think it deserves to be in the top 100 in some, probably very high 90s, to be honest with you, but still a good show. Duckman. Jason Alexander, yet another adult show that had a lot of humor. Once again, paved the way by Ren and Stimpy. And Beavis and Butthead. Fantastic show. Really weird-ass ending. So probably no higher than 80 if it was included on a list. Mm-hmm. And here's one you guys have probably heard of it, but I don't know whether there's going to be any love for it. Dog City.
I've heard of it. I don't know much about it.
Heard of it.
It was a Jim Henson show that came out in the 90s. Right. Yeah, on Fox. Great. It had live-action segments with animated parts. Animation looked really sharp, and the puppets were really well. I think it was the last production of Jim Henson before he died. I don't know.
I vaguely remember that now.
And it was just, it was a really good show. I really enjoyed it. I would put it on my top 100 list easily.
Okay. And was that the last one?
Yeah, that's all I could really think of. I mean, looking at my shelf right now, I don't see anything else. I wouldn't put that on. That show kind of sucked. Maybe Full Metal Alchemist would be another show I'd include too.
I thought that would make the list, but I thought there was, we'll get to that in a little bit. I just thought some of the more anime shows would get in based on other people's voting, but that's another story. I had some that you guys had mentioned. I thought about Goof Troop. I thought about Schoolhouse Rock. I thought about Count Duckula and Bobby's World, and one of my early anime favorites, Mysterious Cities of Gold. But the ones that I went with Dungeons and Dragons. I know, Mike, you don't necessarily like it that much, but
I honestly don't remember it. I mean, we will get to it eventually in Tooncast Beyond, but it's one of those shows where I've gone back and I've tried to watch it, and it isn't what I thought it was going to be. I don't necessarily dislike it. It's just,
for me, the reason I put it on is because I think it had one of the most badass evil characters of all time in Venger. I was freaked out by that character when I was a kid, so it kind of stuck with me. That one is probably the one on my list that has the most bias, though. Other ones that I think actually do deserve a legitimate spot, I would actually put Gumby on there somewhere.
Yes.
I'm not a huge Gumby fan, but I just think for what it was, it deserves to be in a top 100 list.
The one thing I always remember about Gumby is I got to go to H&R Blockhead for my taxes.
You always have the most weird references I've ever heard.
You are a blockhead.
I mean, speaking of shows that were done in the style of Gumby, why did Wallace and Gromit not make this list?
That's true. I didn't even think about that one.
Boo.
But I don't know. I think Gumby, though, for its time was a pretty, groundbreaking type. I mean, it was
claymation.
Yeah, it was super unique. So I like that. Heathcliff and the Cadillac Cats, I would actually put on there. I know a lot of people just lump that in with Garfield, but I think I love Heathcliff. I thought that was a very unique show. I know it was their third attempt at a Heathcliff cartoon before they got it right, but I think the Cadillac Cat segments are good. Mel Blanc as Heathcliff is excellent, so I'd put that on there.
The theme is great.
Yeah. The theme is one of the best themes ever. Pirates of Darkwater from the 90s, I would actually put on there.
Another good one.
That's one that I didn't watch as a kid at all. I actually watched it later as an adult. I haven't watched all of it, but I've watched enough episodes where that was just really well done. I think that kind of flies under the radar a little bit, just like my other pick, which is my number one pick that I think absolutely should be in the top 100, which is Star Trek the Animated Series. I don't know how many people have watched this or seen an episode, but this was perfectly done as far as an animated take on Star Trek. The look of the characters is perfect. They got a majority of the cast to voice the characters. This one is one that you could watch if you're a Star Trek fan. If you're an adult, you could still sit down and watch this, and it's not going to seem like it was something that was done I think it was done in like the 70s. So Star Trek the Animated Series, I think, deserves to be top 100. I don't know about you guys.
I don't know about top 100, but definitely on a list somewhere.
Yeah.
Good show, really was.
So I think, combined with all of us, I think we've hit a lot of different genres and a lot of different stuff as far as things that should or possibly could make a list there in the future. And speaking of the future, I don't know if any of you guys came up with stuff, but I asked you guys to come up with any shows that were more recent shows that just started in like maybe the last year or two, maybe 3 years at the most, that maybe just didn't make the list because they haven't had a chance to, breathe enough. They haven't had a chance to go through their series. What are some shows that maybe in the future you could see making a list? Let's start with Blanchard.
I didn't. I tried to think of some, but I just can't.
Okay, that's fair enough.
I mean, there's so many shows out right now. Like, actually, one of the ones I don't think deserves to be on the list is Batman Brave and the Bold. But anyway, that's bias. But like shows that are coming up. Like, maybe if we did this list 20 years from now, not that we're going to do it 20 years from now, but I'm just saying, like, shows that are out now would probably rank somewhere in a top 100 list, but I just couldn't think of any right now that are, like, top 100 worthy.
No, I'm not saying that they are top 100 worthy. I'm saying that they have a promise or hope maybe of someday being that way. I know you have some, Steve.
Young Justice, maybe.
Okay.
All right. And one of these has not debuted yet. I see Thundercats, the new one, being very promising.
Yeah, I actually have that on my list too, and I know we haven't seen anything but a couple trailers, but even from the trailers, the character look, the voice cast, it looks like it could be amazing.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to that just based on who's in it and the style alone. Another show that I've watched and thought is very promising is Young Justice.
Yeah.
Very nice, darker take on the Justice League, almost in the vein of Batman the Animated Series in some regards. So I could see where that would be where it's at. And my last two would be G.I. Joe Renegades and Transformers Prime.
If G.I. Joe Renegades actually did get cut or canceled like it's been rumored, I'm going to be very upset.
I'll be pissed, too, because that's probably the best G.I. Joe we've gotten since Resolute and even before that.
I like Transformers Prime more when they both debuted, but I've actually grown more attached to Renegades. But I mean, obviously, there's going to be a lot more Prime to watch, and Renegades was a little ahead of it. But either one of those has potential. I don't know if either one will follow through or get the shelf life or the chance to do that. But I could see both of them. What was the other one? Did you say one more? Or?
Those were just the two that I said.
Okay. I have. And I know I'm probably the only fan, I guess, of this, but the Garfield show with Frank Welker as Garfield, the new CGI one, I love that show.
I like it. I just haven't seen, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I like it. I just haven't seen enough. Like, I haven't really followed it. Like, I haven't watched it daily, so it's one of those things when it's on, I'll watch it and I'll enjoy it.
I mean, I could see people saying it's basically the same as the old Garfield. I mean, even though it's completely different look and whatnot, so I can see why they'd only pick one to vote for instead, but I think it's a pretty darn good show. I haven't seen enough of Penguins of Madagascar, but I've heard great things about it.
I love that show.
And I know Birdman won't like me on this one, but I think the new Scooby-Doo Mystery Inc. is a great show.
Mystery Inc., regardless of Scooby's franchise, stuff and all that, Mystery Inc. is easily the best updated Scooby-Doo cartoon.
As long as they try, that's what I care about.
Well, they just did an episode dedicated, and I know
Sidekicks.
Blanchard's seen it, but they did a whole episode dedicated to sidekicks, and they brought back like 5 different sidekicks from old Hanna-Barbera shows, like the Funky Phantom and
Jabberjaw, Funky Phantom, Speed Buggy,
Batman and Robin.
No.
And basically what happened was all the main characters were kidnapped or they disappeared, and it was up to the sidekicks to solve it, which they never do in history. The sidekicks are never the ones that do it. And it was just, the writing on this is really good. The voice casting again is really great. It's probably my favorite Scooby-Doo show of all time.
Wow. All right. Maybe I'll give it a chance.
And the thing about Mystery... Go ahead, Kevin.
I was just saying, you probably won't like it if you don't like the other Scooby-Doos, but I just think it's somewhat done better. I don't know.
Right. Well, the reason why Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated is done better is, from what I've seen, everything ties together. They're not individual they are individual mysteries for the episodes, but
continuity.
There's an overall continuity because one person that they haven't, I don't think they've revealed who yet, but one person is behind all of these things that happen within the show. So that's why I said that I think it's the best updating.
Well, and they have like the parents of the Scooby-Doo kids in there, or the Scooby-Doo people. They have they bring in their families a little bit. Birdman, did you have a chance to come up with any shows that might have for future?
Yeah. One show I'd like to see, it hasn't premiered yet. I wonder where Tron Uprising is going to sit.
That looks so amazing.
That is true.
I'm hoping it will fit well into the overall mythos. I hope it's not just a cheap cash-in. I really have a lot of high hopes for it. Another show I've only seen 3 or 4 episodes of, but I really like it, is The Mighty Avengers. I love the theme song to this show. But I don't have television, so I don't get a chance to watch a lot of these things. Other than that, I guess you could count Dragon Ball Z Kai, because I think there's one more season of that, then that show's done its run.
Yeah, that's true.
So, yeah, those would be my
There also is a new Voltron and new Turtles coming out, but I haven't seen anything to know if they'll have any potential or not.
Agreed.
I think the Turtles might. Voltron, it's going to depend whether the people care enough to write it well.
Yeah.
I agree.
So, I mean, it would be interesting if we revisit it, or I know we're going to do something in the future. I don't know when or what exactly. We haven't decided that yet, but maybe some of these shows will show up in a future list.
It's comparison time.
Yes. A lot of people, I just want to jump in here because a few of the people that have made comments here and there have said that, at least one asshat, not to mention any names, but I think it was the YouTube guy, said that all we did was switch 1 or 2 shows from IGN's and basically came up with the exact same list. Actually, a third of our list is different. There's 30 shows that made IGN's list that did not make ours, and vice versa. So we're just going to talk a little bit about some of the shows that either made IGN's or that made ours that didn't, so people are aware of them. So I actually want to start with Birdman here on some of the shows that were on IGN's list that you think should have been on our list, or, some of the IGN shows that you think they got it right by putting it on their list.
I would agree about Duckman for sure, the Boondocks, Afro Samurai. But one of the shows I never even thought about this to include was Spawn, the HBO series.
Yeah.
Fuck, that was amazing. Also another one I'm surprised didn't make it in some regards, because we have a lot of Kevin Smith fans here. Clerks, despite only being on television for 2 episodes, but it technically counts.
I'm sure Blanchard would have put it on if he could have.
Yeah,
At number 37.
Oh.
Yeah, in a row. But yeah, fantastic show. Another one I'm surprised that showed up on the IGN list was actually Galaxy High School, was one I didn't expect to show up. And I didn't expect Robot Chicken, because I wouldn't have considered that animation per se.
I think Galaxy High School is the by far the worst show that made their list. As far as I don't understand why it made their list. I actually am an 80s fan, so I know it, and I have somewhat of a love for it, but Top 100, I'm very surprised that Galaxy High School made their list. And they actually defended it in a write-up following it that said, yes, Galaxy High School does deserve to be on there, and they said some other things, and I was just blown away by that.
I'm surprised they've got shows like Josie and the Pussycats. That show was fucking stupid.
Well, I do want to mention too, they had 6 shows, I believe it was 6 shows that made their list that not a single person on our list voted for.
Which were?
Dr. Katz, Frisky Dingo, Home Movies, Liquid Television, Mighty Mouse, and The Max. Not a single one of our people that contributed gave one vote to any of those shows, so I thought that was kind of interesting.
In retrospect, I would have voted for The Max, because it's great, and it's a great style of MTV animation. Frisky Dingo... Why the fuck do people like this shit? It
kind of exposes their whole Adult Swim or adult-oriented, comedy type shows with some of those, like Dr. Katz and Home Movies and Liquid Television. Not to mention some of the ones that you guys had already talked about. Or Aqua Teen Hunger Force made their list. Robot Chicken. It's just a very adult-oriented list.
I'm just glad it's not fucking Super Jail.
C-Lab 2021 was another one that they had on their list.
See, that show's at least funny because it's fucking weird for the right reasons. Like, the guys looking for their happy cake oven under the sea. That's pretty insane and pretty funny. But shit...
I fully expected Count Duckula to make our list. I fully expected Invader Zim and Venture Brothers to make our list. And I thought Astro Boy had an outside shot, so I'm kind of surprised that those are on IGN's list and not ours.
See, I've got an explanation for that one, actually.
Go ahead.
Because I think a lot of us, knowing the IGN list was very slanted towards these shows, I think subconsciously we all decided we're not going to vote for shows like that. And Venture Brothers... It's kind of a dumb show, but it deserves to be on the top 100. It really does. It's greatly written. It's funny. It's weird. And it does a lot of things right. Invader Zim, the love for Johann Vasquez. It's a weird and funny show. It totally deserves to be on our list. 100? Maybe not, but definitely... If it was on a top 100 list for writing, absolutely.
Okay. Well, and Astro Boy as being one of the pioneers as far as like anime type stuff, I believe, if I'm getting that right, deserves some impact. And there was a couple anime, Battle of the Planets. What was the other couple anime shows that they had on there? Full Metal Alchemist,
Afro Samurai.
Yeah. So they did
Naruto.
Naruto, yeah.
Why?
Steve, any thoughts on the ones that made IGNs that weren't on ours?
The only one I could see is like Robot Chicken.
Yeah. I could see Schoolhouse Rock since it came so close.
Yeah, that's true.
Star Trek, the animated series.
Yeah. Like I said, there's a bunch of them that we named in our list of as far as stuff that we might put in there.
Yeah.
But there's just some, like I said, some glaring errors as far as Galaxy High School. I don't think Clerks can ever deserve to be on any list because of it was 2 episodes.
Agreed. If you gave it for writing.
Yeah.
That's how, if we were to segment this list, if you got shows that never got a chance to show their true potential.
Yeah. Other ones, Josie and the Pussycats, like you said, I think that's retarded. I actually have no love for Underdog that made their list. And obviously those ones that we didn't vote for, I think, deserve no place. But it's an interesting collection compared to, let's say, some of the ones that we have that they didn't. I'll actually let Steve start with this one. What are some of the shows that we have that you're very happy that we had that IGN failed by not having on their list?
Beast Wars, Reboot, the new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Spider-Man, Mighty Max, SWAT Cats, and that would be pretty much my master list of what I'm glad is on there that wasn't on theirs.
I agree with a few of them that you said, like Beast Wars and the new Masters of the Universe, the new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I think Sailor Moon definitely deserves to be somewhere in the top 100.
I actually can't believe IGN did not have that on their list.
Yeah,
Sailor Moon.
really.
Like, really, wow.
We've already talked about Reboot. Garfield and Friends, I think, is a glaring error on their part.
Yeah.
Doug, SWAT Cats, like you said, Adventures of Gummy Bears, I think those all deserve for sure top 100, and I can't believe they didn't have some of them, especially the new Masters of the Universe and the new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I don't understand how they missed those. But any other ones that you see on the list, Blanchard?
Not really.
Not your Phineas and Ferb?
Not really, because again, as I said when we got to that ranking, I didn't even expect that show to make it. I honestly didn't. I wasn't even I didn't even try to pine to get that show on our countdown at all. I just ranked it where I thought it deserved it in my list, and that was it. I wasn't expecting anything to show up for Phineas and Ferb.
And obviously we've already talked about some of the glaring mistakes we might have had, but what are your thoughts on the list of shows that we had that IGN didn't, Birdman?
I think maybe we shouldn't have included a lot of the video game shows.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm glad we included things like She-Ra, Sailor Moon. I think the shows that there are a few there that maybe didn't deserve it. I know I voted for Care Bears. In retrospect, maybe I shouldn't have. In retrospect, now that I've had a chance to look at this from a more, what does it contribute to the world of animation? It sold fucking greeting cards. So I guess I'm okay with a lot of it. I'm surprised Captain Planet didn't end up on the IGN list. I really am.
Yeah.
So I think we did a good job to cover things, but once again, looking at our list, how many of these are toy shows or based upon existing properties? How many of these are original IPs, so to speak? So,
yeah. Well, I think what would be nice to do is be able to take some of those that we did mention that were on IGN's list, those 4, 5, or 6 that we mentioned, take a few of ours out and kind of make a mixture of the two. Would be kind of a good way to go about it. But I don't know. I just think some of the glaring mistakes that they made are almost even worse than some of the ones that they had that we didn't. Like you said, just repeating, but Yogi Bear, Garfield and Friends, Sailor Moon, Reboot. I don't know. I don't understand how you don't have those on your list.
Yeah, exactly.
So any other thoughts on a comparison of overall general as far as the IGN list and our list before we get into anything else?
No.
Well, I guess one thing we should maybe talk about before we wrap up just very quickly, where did we go right, where did we go wrong? And I kind of want to start this.
Yeah, go ahead.
One of the things I think we did right is we had a lot of diversity. 15 different people contributing information. That's cool. Now, in that diversity, we're also looking at input from all age ranges, background, tastes, and geographic locations.
I really like the geographic difference that we had as far as Canada, all over Canada, all over the U.S. I know some people had a problem with us putting someone from the U.K. in the list, but I think we had a lot of diversity that way.
Yeah, and I think that really helped us. Now, some of our weaknesses, and my big weakness is we are way too biased towards Western animation. And that's not anybody's fault, because some of us who are anime nerds or like anime just didn't get a chance to be on those records to maybe represent certain shows better, such as Cowboy Bebop, Ava, Death Note, etc. Another one is there's a lot of action shows in here. Does Batman deserve to be number 1? I really think so. Does Transformers deserve to be number 3? You gotta be fucking kidding me.
We know.
Another one that I don't know whether a lot of people were considering this. I mean, I get this mostly from Dave. is I don't think we focus nearly enough on writing and the strength of story development over the course of a series.
Well, and that's something that I wanted to bring up too, because basically the instructions as far as what I gave, I kind of made it very loose because I thought I did kind of tell people don't just pick your favorites, and this isn't about your own personal favorites. Try to pick what you think is the best. I intentionally did not define the word best because I thought if I left it undefined, some people would rank it based on strictly quality of show or writing or storytelling. Some people would base it on franchise. Some people would base it on longevity or cultural impact as far as cartoons. And I thought by not defining it, we'd get a little bit of everything, which would help. But it seemed like everybody used this almost the same definition of best, so we didn't get that diversity I was kind of hoping for, if that made any sense.
And I think that's what kind of hurt us because, like I said, looking at our top 25, how many of these shows can you really say have particularly strong writing? Yes, for a few. For our top 10, it gets tricky. It really does. I mean, looking at the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 1987 series, no. Transformers, no. DuckTales, debatable. Stuff like that. Simpsons, South Park, very, very strong writing team.
Animaniacs,
yeah. So there's a lot of diversity in there, but another thing that I think hurt us was the nostalgia glasses.
Oh, yeah.
Someone needed to be double-checking our work and questioning. I really think someone should have been asking, why did you vote for this? I don't fucking know. I mean, like, for example, and I'll admit fault here, I only submitted 40 shows because I'm a busy fucking guy. Had I known how large this project would have gotten and how in-depth it would have gotten, I would have put a lot more into it because I missed shows like Spawn, which was, it pushed the adult animation, what could be accomplished on network television, on HBO. Beyond anything we've seen in years.
Well, you're on notice for next time.
Yeah. So,
well, I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, but there were some people that might have put Thundercats, Turtles, Inspector Gadget, Gem Mask, Transformers, He-Man, and She-Ra in their top 10.
Yeah. Yeah, and I guess my problem is with that, though. I mean, if you're looking at a top 100 animated shows, you have to look at just more than, hey, I remember having that toy, or I remember watching that on Saturday morning. You have to look at it as an adult, as a journalist, as a representative of the geek community by being an expert and an emissary of this. So I think it's a responsibility to do your research. I mean, look at the argument we got to early in this show with Blanchard and Ren and Stimpy. That's the problem. We couldn't put apart biases.
Well, and part of it, though, is, like, the bias thing I agree with. Now, nostalgia, I don't think should be discounted 100%. And the reason I say that is maybe kind of misleading. I don't want someone to just view it as, I like this as a kid, but I do think there is something, and I've said this before, for a show that was achieving its goal of being popular for kids in its time period, and I don't think we can strictly view things as our adult selves. I don't think we should totally discount how popular something is to kids at its time, but I do think that you can overdo it, and you can use that as your only basis. In a perfect world, you see, was it popular for its time? Did it have an impact on animation or its genre? How long did it last? How good was the writing? How good was the animation? You look at all the factors, but like I said, that's a perfect world, and so far we haven't quite got there.
Yeah, I mean, for next time, we know what has to be done. Did IGN do their homework? Not necessarily. I think there's some debatable points we could make on their list for their list and some of their choices looking back at the errors we made. Right. So are we different from them? Yes. Are we the same? Yeah, same time too. Our biases showed through just as much as theirs did.
All right, so let me ask you guys this, and Mike, you can go first since you're kind of on a timetable here. Do you think our list is a good representation of the geek community, or do you think the IGN list is?
See, that's hard.
Strictly geeks.
Strictly geeks. I think we represented the geek community well in a lot of ways, but we didn't have accurate representation show to show. Like I said, looking at the IGN ranking, for example, for Neon Genesis Evangelion is number 10. On ours, it's 99. If
you looked at ours if you changed it, and if it was a geek list of Western animation, I think ours is somewhat more accurate.
Yeah, that'll definitely give you, because because it was opened up to such a wide market, that's another thing too. We didn't necessarily have the right filters in place. So once again, it's a learning experience. I think we did a good job, all things considered, but looking at some of the placements for these things, we have to question our own list as well. We are far from...
No. And, people over at Toonzone kept referencing to us about how can you say that this is the definitive list for geeks or the definitive list of best of all time, and I clearly replied a couple of times, we're not saying that this is the definitive list. We were out to make
our list,
but we were out to make what we thought would have been a better representation than what IGN's list is, because everybody holds IGN's list in some high regard for some strange reason. Yes, I know that they're more credible than us, but still, their list has flaws just like ours does.
Well, I think they put a lot of lists out, and I think a lot of times there's not a lot of thought put into them as far as the process goes. And that's the main reason I wanted to do it, was because in a podcast forum you could actually hear some arguments and some debates and people saying, no, it should be here, no, it should be there, whereas they just put a list out and said, fuck you guys, this is what it is. We're not going to give you any reasoning, any way we came up with this. This is just our list. So that's why
accountability, I think, is the difference between us and them. We've openly admitted our flaws. We've even showed flaws in our own logic, our own biases, and some of our own choices.
But no one
did not.
Right, and no one can have a question as to how we came up with our list, because we've outlined exactly how we came up with our list. So it's not like it's a mystery. It's not like no one can accuse us of drawing names out of a hat, because we clearly didn't. So, I mean, are we perfect? Absolutely not. We have a long way to go. But I think this was a good first step.
I think this was a fine first swing at the IGN list. Was this a knockout punch? No, but it was enough to make the lights flicker.
Steve, your thoughts on weaknesses or strengths of our list?
Yeah, I can see where we were a little biased, but at the same time, they were more so biased towards the adult and anime side of it, and neglecting shows that should more than likely have been on there. But at the same time, this was a learning experience for us all. So, I mean, the next time we go through and do this, we'll be able to at least watch or get some exposure to some of these shows that are animation styles from all over the place. So we'll at least be exposed to it and be able to properly show it off in the next countdown that we'll end up doing.
Right. And I think there might be a possibility where we actually look at some different, more specific categories and genres and do some pre-ranking before we go back to a major list. Like, I was talking to both Mikes off air, maybe we do come up with what's the best 80s action shows, or what are the best primetime shows, or what are the best, different categories. So that way, once we get back to doing maybe a major list, at least we have some rankings amongst certain categories.
Right. And with that, Mr. Bastard Man Dodd has to go over to his Thursday night, Saturday morning forgotten cartoons, which makes no fucking sense, because you should be doing these on Saturday fucking morning.
You see, Mike, that's the one day of the week.
I know. You're busy, blah, 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 I know. But just ever since you've came up with that title for Saturday, Birdman's Saturday morning forgotten cartoons, and you do them at night, I
like them at night.
Do them on Saturday morning, damn it.
I like them at night.
Who wants to get up in the morning, man?
It's much more fun to be up late.
All right, I will fully say, when Transformers Animated switched from 10:30 a.m. on Saturday to 8 a.m., I was up every morning watching that show, Saturday morning cartoon. So,
Mike, I'm going to bed at 8 o'clock in the morning, depending on some days. But
we would like to thank Birdman for coming on here and sharing his thoughts as far as the wrap-up show, and let him have some last words or last thoughts before he exits.
Yeah, guys, this has been a really fantastic experience. Going back and listening to all these things, I think one of the best things that we can walk away from this is I think we all walked away a little bit more experienced in terms of what we learned. We learned to expand our boundaries, and we've learned the individual flaws with each other. Like I said, we now know what we can do for next time to be better journalists and representation for the geek communities to which we both serve, be it Geekcast Radio Network, This Week in Geek, Chicken Pot Pod, or whoever. There's a lot of room for us to grow, And that's the cool thing. That's something where IGN has not done yet. They haven't been willing to revisit this list. They haven't been willing to be held accountable for it. That's where I think we did the right thing. So hopefully when we revisit this list in a couple of years, things will have changed, and we'll approach this list with a higher degree of integrity, research, and everything else. So, guys, it was a fantastic thing to be a part of this show. I'm really glad you guys asked me to do it. So, thanks again, guys.
If people want to get in touch with you or stay in touch with what you're doing, you got any information you want to pull out there?
Absolutely. You can find me over at thatguywiththeglasses.com. I'm over on blisteredthumbs.net. I'm video game review a day. I'm always on the bottom of the page. You can also find me over at my primary site, thisweekingeek.net, as well as the Clear Channel Radio Network, where I do video games reviews over there, as well as several other chains in Canada. If you ever want to email me hate mail, death threats, or topless pictures, you can do that at mike@thisweekingeek.net. I look forward to each and every bit of correspondence.
He prefers the topless pictures.
You goddamn right I do. And with that, guys, as I'm often fond of saying when I sign off, live free or die hard, and I'll catch you guys again next time.
We need a Die Hard animated series.
Fuck yeah!
And now for the voicemails for the Top 100 feedback.
Hi. Backbreaker here. I've been listening to the Geekcast Radio Network Top 100 Animated Series of All Time list since episode 21. Then I went back to episode 20, and today I have heard the number 1. And I have to say I completely agree with Batman the Animated Series as your number 1. I have enjoyed the countdown very much, sometimes, since I am from Europe, trying to identify some shows, but mostly joining in the reminiscent aspect which such lists bring with it. A couple of things for the possible next attempt. Get people to submit lists of shows, so in the end there will be a master list, and post it on a site so people can choose from that collection of shows. And this should possibly reduce the number of shows that will be forgotten. Get more lists from different age groups, or maybe even some from people who already work as, let's say, voice actors or producers on such shows. And I'll just give you my entry. Exo Squad. Well, thank you, and keep doing what you do. Greets, Backbreaker.
Hi, I already left a message. I think I should just leave it again to say it clearer. I assume you're going to cut this opening part out, so I guess my message starts now. Hi, this is HG Revolution from the Toon Zone forums, and I was curious about exactly how you decided to rank these keys based on the factors of quality versus influence, versus nostalgia, because what's the highest quality and what's the most influential are two very different things. I mean, let's take the movie Birth of a Nation, say. Definitely one of the top 10 most influential films of all time. It's also quality-wise might be impressive in some regards, but it's not a particularly great film. It's not an enjoyable one, and it's certainly one of the most offensive things ever. Her plot-wise, and script-wise, but but in terms of influence, totally top 10. So it definitely works on a list of the most influential, but does it work on a list of best? No, I mean, if you're going by quality alone, it probably wouldn't even make it on most people's lists. And if you're going by a mix of quality and influence, it would probably be on the list, but definitely on the lower side of the list, just below a lot of better movies, which we kind of had as big an influence, but were certainly better films. And now obviously I can't think of any TV series as notorious as Birth of a Nation, but you get the general point that they're two very different things. And yes, and also obviously you wonder how much nostalgia plays a role, because if you're going by influence mainly, then shouldn't a lot of stuff older than most of the stuff you mentioned be there? Shouldn't Astro Boy, the first anime, be there? Shouldn't Riff and Reddy, the first Hanna-Barbera cartoon? Crusader Rabbit, the first cartoon on TV ever? That certainly seems pretty influential. I mean, it's not a well-remembered show, but it had basically created the limited animation style, which allowed TV animation to be affordable at all for the longest time. So, where's that stuff? Unless you were going by either stuff you thought was better, in which case some of your decisions become more debatable if you're going by quality, and also if you're going by, or if you were going by stuff that you remembered as a kid versus what was the most influential or what was the best. And also, as far as influence, how did you look at influence in general, or did you look at good influence versus bad influence? Like, something like Looney Tunes definitely had a lot of positive influence, extremely influential. Flintstones, I don't even think the show's that great, but it definitely had a huge, very positive influence. Something like He-Man, well, it influenced people to make more toy commercial shows, but did it ever occur to you that toy commercial shows aren't really that good? Not necessarily a good thing. I mean, if it had any positive impact at all, it would be on the fan base who would to do creative things with that. Like, he had a lot of He-Man jokes, and obviously there's the remake, which is probably better, but if you're going by fan bases of stuff, then Ed Wood's movies would certainly be on the top movie list, and because they're very enjoyable and people love them, but they love them because they're not good. So basically I'm just wondering that criteria stuff. So, yeah, bye.
Hey, Geekcast Radio Network. This is Sketch1984 from Twitter. And I'm calling in to give my response to the Top 100. I'd say it was a very interesting experience to follow this as you guys went along. I thought it was a great idea for you guys to do it in a podcast format and give your thoughts as you went along. As you know, I've given you criticisms on how much information you've given on each show as you went along, but I understand that you guys didn't know the list, except for one guy knew the list, and the rest of you were, still prepared to really give statements on at least most of the list. I think that this went pretty well. There are certain shows that you added to your list that were not on IGN's, and I think that's great. But then again, there are also some shows on IGN's list that didn't make it to your list, like Invader Zim, and that's kind of a bummer. I think this has been a learning experience for everybody. And if I had two criticisms about how this went along, I think when people were making their individual lists, they put a little too much emphasis on the impact over the quality. And I think even if you compare things to the subjective quality of their time, that some of these shows are kind of hard-pressed to make it onto a top 100 list. Need I mention Captain Planet, Captain N, the Super Mario Brothers Super Show, and various other 80s shows that I can't believe made it to this list. And mind you, I like the Super Mario Brothers Super Show. Well, I guess that's, no, wait, there was one more thing. I think people kind of putting shows on their list because they just wanted to make sure that they got on there, and I'm sure you understand this by now. So, yeah, maybe don't do that next time. I hope you guys do it again because I think this has been a learning experience for all of us, and it was entertaining to go along every week. So, thanks, guys. It was a valiant effort.
Hi, this is Tim leaving feedback for the top 100 animated shows of all time, wrap-up show. And I just first of all, I have to say what a good job you guys have done. I really enjoy listening to these episodes of the podcast over the past several weeks. Just look forward to downloading and listening to every single episode. I have some complaints with the list, but I think overall you guys did a really good job. It actually compares fairly favorable to mine. There were some shows I wasn't really very familiar with that made the list, so that was, but that was okay. I think they placed pretty well overall. The top 10, I'm not going to comment on every show, but I think the top 10 was pretty good. I think my Batman animated series is number 2 on my list. Looney Tunes I think would be the favorite. Just longevity and just what that show did was just amazing. So many memorable characters. It's just everybody knows those characters, and I think it actually resonates more with people than Batman the animated series, even though that is such a cool and very well done series. I guess SpongeBob was probably one of my surprises because I would have ranked it in the top 10 easily. It's just already it's become such a cultural phenomenon that I think ranking it at 43 where you guys did was just really way too low. Tom and Jerry would also have been in my top 10. I had it at number 8 on my list. Just a great show. Again, one of those shows that just so many people know and absolutely love. Simpsons was number 4 on my list. So I just think, again, as you guys said, this is a show that people know so well, and I think it does get a lot of cred because it's been on so long. I think, as Mike said, in the early years it was really the best. It's kind of waned off, not really as good in these last few years. And, DuckTales, definitely, I agree that is the best of the Disney cartoons. I really like Darkwing Duck. I wasn't really familiar with Gargoyles very much. It was on, and when I did catch it, I really liked it. And just because I know it has a huge following, I put Gargoyles at number 18. Darkwing Duck was also one of my favorites, probably my second favorite of the Disney cartoons. I ranked it 39, so I didn't have it quite as high as you guys did, but just excellent shows all around. And I think overall you guys did a really good job with the list. And South Park, that was a good one to have in the top 10. I was surprised to see that one there, but it definitely deserves its spot. Again, just thanks for all the work you put into it. Wish I could have gotten my list in sooner and been a part of this extremely cool undertaking. So enjoy the show. Keep up the good work. Hi, this is Tim, again, leaving feedback for the top 100 animated shows of all time. I just call back to make some general comments. Transformers, I know. You guys said pretty much everything there is to say about that one, but I really wasn't very surprised to see it in the top 10. To see it where it was, I think number 3 was a huge surprise, especially being above DuckTales and Looney Tunes. I mean, yeah, when I heard you guys saying Looney Tunes, I knew Transformers hadn't come yet. We were in big trouble, but as you said, you had 20 lists submitted, and several of those came from Transformers fan sites or people that in geekdom that are big Transformers fans. So, knowing that, knowing the bias that a lot of people have with their list, I was not incredibly surprised to see it ranked pretty high. I think it actually does deserve a good spot on my personal list. I have it around 17, which is what you said your average was, pretty close to 18.6 or something like that. So I think that's really more of where it should fall. But I think, if I really had one complaint, it would be that so many people did vote with a bias rather than looking at it objectively and saying, what really makes it one of the best of all time. The writing, the impact it had on its audience at the time, the cultural impact it's had, the longevity of the show, how memorable it is overall, in addition to the voice casting, great writing and character designs and just, all those sorts of things. So, Transformers was ranked pretty high, and, some shows probably shouldn't have made the list. Mask is a really cool cartoon. Cops was the one I was thinking of that probably really didn't belong on there. But, as I said, overall, I think it's a very good list, and Cops was ranked, low enough that it wasn't really a big issue. But, next time I would hope that the list would, be comprised of a wider range of people voting. And I also think that things were a bit skewed because, Dirt said that he didn't vote on certain shows because they were spin-offs of sorts of other shows, and I really don't agree with that. I think that, other shows that spun out of main shows like, Tiny Toons, yes, it came first, but Animaniacs came later, Pinky and the Brain, I think those they're separate shows. They deserve their own spot. The only case where I see that might be a reason to lump things together would be with something like Justice League and Justice League Unlimited, because they really are one show. I ranked them separately on my list, and I indeed, like you guys, ranked Justice League Unlimited higher. It was number 5 on my list, and Justice League was number 14 on my list. And I think that, just the expanded cast of characters made Unlimited better. But yeah, I think that, to ignore, some of the other series, or even Disney shows, geez, if you're leaving out Darkwing and Rescue Rangers and Tailspin and all those shows because you think DuckTales came first, and so you're only going to rank that, that's going to skew the list quite a bit. And, of course, I brought up some of the other issues I had as far as ranking goes, where, we had people that, weren't in the American audience, which is what we're really targeting, I think, with the list. But it was still good to, hear those opinions, to see what they had on their list. But, again, it was kind of skewed because they maybe didn't get certain shows there that we had here, or they were on it, in later years and so forth. But again, it's a really good list. I certainly beat Spence off of IGN's list, and that was the whole point, was to make a more reasonable list. And I hope to catch you guys the next time you try to pull one together. It'll be lots of fun, and just enjoyed listening to this so much. Thank you, guys.
I'd like to thank everybody for leaving those voicemails. How do we want to respond?
Well, there's a couple different ways. I would like to start with just kind of the general thanks for a lot of the kind comments. Everybody seemed to have some pretty nice things to say about how much they enjoyed listening to it. So that one asshat that left our YouTube thing that said nobody wants to hear you guys to talk about this stuff, you're wrong. People did enjoy the conversation. I know there were some shows that we didn't know enough about, and, obviously nobody knew which shows were coming up next, so it's not like we could have researched as far as information and solid defenses as far as each show came along. We did the best we could on the fly, so I just appreciate all the nice comments that everybody made about their enjoyment of listening to it, whether they agreed with it or not. It seemed like they still enjoyed listening to the debate. So that's where I want to start. Go ahead.
That's a thing for next time. I think for those people that are like, say the next countdown we do starts at episode 120 of GCR and goes to 125. I think the people that are on the actual countdown episodes in the records, we should know the list. That way we can be prepared.
Yeah. Well, and I think now that they've all kind of been exposed and we kind of have an idea of which ones are in the conversation, just in general, we know to be prepared for those.
Right.
I do apologize to the one voicemail because I couldn't understand it very well. But I got what the gist of what he was asking, and he was asking how we define our best. I know we kind of talked about that a little bit before Birdman left, but I purposely did not define what best was for people because I was hoping then we would get a lot of different bests. My only thing was try to take a little bit of personal bias out and try to combine, like I said in episode 20, legacy, longevity, critical acclaim as far as awards, the voice work, the animation, the storytelling, and don't discount something just because it doesn't hold up as an adult viewer. That was basically what I put in there. Right. So that's kind of how we define best, but we're not saying this is the world's top 100. This is Geekcast Radio's top 100. So. Yep. I'll just put that disclaimer out there.
And before Steve gives some of his thoughts, as I said before, we didn't just want to do this with me, Steve, Kevin, Michael Wilson, who's done podcasting with us before, Tara Blair, who's done podcasting with us before, and Glade and JT. We just didn't want it to be Geekcast Radio Network. That's why we reached out to Blogomatic, Behind the Voice Actors, Chicken Pop Pod, This Week in Geek, Pop Culture Network, because that way people can't say, like people say with the, it's just IGN, and they're not giving examples, you know? So, I mean, that's one of the reasons why I like doing a big collaboration like this, because it's a wide variety, and if we do, next time we do this, I think we need to get more people involved.
Well, yeah.
And that'll help to list out more. What about you, Steve? What are your overall thoughts?
On what people said in the voicemails and whatnot?
Yeah.
Well, I'm just glad that people, actually responded with, some constructive criticism instead of just bashing the hell out of us like IGN got. And I think it's more so because we admitted up front that, hey, we're not the, ultimate resource, but we're trying, and we do intend on doing this again at some point in the future. So, I mean, I think it's more so that we admitted our flaws up front.
Yeah.
Instead of trying to be the be-all, end-all list.
Yeah.
Right.
And the thing about it is, as Kevin said, and as Mike Dodd said, and we have to talk about a lot of this stuff off air, but like, someone mentioned on the Toon Zone forums of having a countdown the podcast for Geekcast Radio Network, and I basically said that that's probably not going to happen. However, we can use Geekcast Radio here. We can use this specific podcast for a countdown episode like batch. Say it's episode 60 to 70 or something. Like if we do top 10s throughout that episode block, we can do those. That's what Geekcast Radio is for, is that general geek specific thing, whether it be countdowns, whether it be versus, episodes like He-Man versus the Governator, or whatever, you know what I mean? Whatever. It's one of those things where I want to expand this podcast to that point where we have a lot of general geek topics where we're not just tied into our, other podcasts that are just specific topic shows.
Well, and we are going to be having a Versus coming up real soon that will be directly, am I allowed to say what that is?
No, not yet.
Okay.
But we'll be doing Versus stuff here soon, so...
So look forward to some of that stuff. But no, I also want to talk about a little bit about, we had a lot of comments on both our website, geekcastradio.com, as well as obviously the 10-plus pages of Toon Zone stuff. And, a lot of people brought up a lot of good points. A lot of people brought up some points maybe that I don't agree with. But, part of it was we wanted it to kind of be I wanted it to be spur of the moment reactions, genuine reactions to the list, and I liked that because I liked seeing what your guys' reactions were as we saw that. Now that we've done that, obviously there's things to change for the future, and it wouldn't be as genuine as far as shock or awe in the future anyways. So, but I think there's a lot of good things that we're going to revisit the math and the equations or formulas we use to get our numbers. We're going to, maybe do some preliminary rankings of different genres maybe before we get to a big list again.
Right.
So there's a lot of different stuff that we can do in as far as including more people from different groups, maybe even some of the people over at Toon Zone or, wherever. So, I mean, there is going to be a lot of different changes for the future, and I just like reading through all the comments about the show, whether it was good or bad, and most of them were actually fairly intelligent, and it wasn't, like Steve said, it wasn't just straight up bashing.
Yeah, it wasn't the IGN one-word bashing of, oh my fucking God, are you kidding me?
There were some people that needed to listen to episode 20.
Right, yeah, and that's the thing, I'm thinking next time we do this, like, my example is, say we start another giant countdown at episode 120 of Geekcast Radio. We release that episode, wait about 2 weeks, so everyone can hear the introduction and everyone knows the rules. And then we start, recording and releasing the actual countdown episodes from week to week to week.
Well, and I know also there was people that wanted a list straight up from the beginning. Well, that would have made no sense. People were a podcasting group, so we want you to actually listen to the podcast. Plus, then you can hear our debates. You can hear us say, it's a lot better to hear us fully admit that, hey, Transformers should not be number 3 than just to see a list and bash us because we put it at number 3.
Exactly.
So that's why we didn't put the list out. There will be a list out. You know,
Yeah,
now that we've done all the records, you're going to be able to see it in visual format, and it's not going to take you 100 pages to click through like IGN.
Right. Whenever we do countdowns, because as Kevin said, we are a podcasting network, we will record and release podcasts first. We will never post the actual list until after all the countdown episodes are done. So say
That would make no sense, people.
Huh?
It would make no sense, people.
Exactly. We don't need hate comments before you actually hear us.
Well, and then some people wouldn't even listen. So I know some people don't want to sit through the hours it's going to take to listen to this, but I think once you get listening, and if you're really an animation fan, it goes by pretty fast.
And the other thing is, most of our episodes here on Geekcast Radio, and I've said this in the past, and Steve knows this, and I know that we all agree and disagree on the length of podcast. One of the reasons why there haven't been many Geekcast Radio episodes is because I have always wanted to reserve this for big, epic topics that last 2.5, 3 hours. That's just my thought on it, and I understand that everybody has a different thought on it. But with the countdown episodes that we've done, the last 5 episodes, each of those episodes, there's only 2 out of 5 that are over 2 hours.
Yeah.
You know, so, I mean, someone can listen to an hour and a half podcast at some point. And again, the beauty of it is you don't have to listen to it on our time because it's not, yes, it is streaming on the website, but we also have it iTunes and wherever else you want to get podcatching stuff. But, so, I mean, you can listen to it on your time. So.
Right. And, you know, if you want the more of a visual thing, we also have the YouTube videos you can watch. So
yep.
Just putting a quick plug out for that.
Yes.
But, Steve, any other thoughts on some of the stuff you read at Toon Zone or on Geekcast Radio, some of the comments?
Some of them were very ignorant, but some of them were not completely wrong either. So I would say overall it was pretty mixed commenting.
Yeah, well, I think some of the comments early on were a little worse than some of the ones later on, and there were some very knowledgeable people that had some good comments, so I think it was a mixture.
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, I think it's one of those things where, and I know people don't want this, and we will never do this, but if you added up the hours from episode 20 to now, it would be 6-7 hours, and I know people don't want that, and that's fine, I understand that, but I think everybody kept asking, well, how do we leave feedback? How do we leave feedback? You know, you can do it on the Facebook fan page if you want to comment on one of the posts. You can do it on the website. You can do it, you know, wherever we have it posted, like something like Tombstone. Or if you want to leave voicemails, you can do that. But what I suggest is you wait until any countdown is done. Because you don't want to sit there and call into the voicemail and leave a message for episode 21, which is the first half of the first 20 shows of the countdown, and then we get down to episode 25 and you're like, oh, oops. You know.
Yeah.
Stop typing.
Who is typing?
I don't know. I can hear it.
Probably me. For once.
Do we have any other thoughts on just like closing this project out?
Well, I'd just like to thank everyone that was involved, especially those people that came on and co-hosted with us, but also the people that submitted lists that didn't have a chance to be on the episodes. Mm-hmm. You know, obviously there was different amounts of work done by different people, and so anybody that put any time or effort into helping us out with the list, we appreciate it.
Yes.
And, you know, maybe we should plug all the...
We'll do that. I'll do that
okay.
In the outro. Steve, any final thoughts before we close out the project?
Definitely worth another shot later in the future.
Yes.
Definitely.
I look forward to it.
Glad to see how it turned out.
Well, and I think it turned out better than I thought it would. I mean, yes, there's some mistakes here and there, but it turned out pretty good, I thought, as far as an overall thing. And I actually am very excited to return to this at some point and redo my list and, you know, fix some things. I think it'll be a fun project the second time around, too.
Yes. These are the end times. The Geekcast Radio Network's Top 100 Animated Series of All Time project has come to a close. We would like to thank the entire list of contributors once again, BehindTheVoiceActors.com, Blogomatic3000.com, ChickenPopPod.com, PopCultureNetwork.com, and ThisWeekinGeek.net. Again, have to give a huge shout-out to the Toon Zone forums and Sketch who posted the countdown over there. We appreciate the support. And once again, huge thanks go out to our GCRN owns Kevin Optimus Solo Thompson, because without him, this project wouldn't be what it is, and we owe it to him for getting the flagship podcast of the network more episodes.
Yay.
Hey.
That's what happens when you ask me for ideas.
Yay. The actual list will be posted on the website on April 18th when this episode goes live. I believe we still have to talk about this, but it may not be one post, it may be two, it may be four, we're not sure yet, we still have to discuss that, but it won't be 100 fucking pages like IGN.
Exactly.
There are several ways to There are several ways to get in contact with us or leave feedback for the shows. Visit the website, geekcastradio.com. You can comment on each episode post. Leave the show's feedback in iTunes. Please do this. Follow us on Twitter. The show name there is Geekcast Radio. Mine is TFG1 Mike. Kevin, what is your Twitter?
Optimus Solo.
Steve?
SCP-21.
And you can follow Mike Dodd. It's at Birdman Dodd.
Also, I don't think you have this in there before you keep going. If you're interested in more of an in-depth discussion on a lot of these cartoons, please seek out Tooncast on geekcastradio.com or on iTunes, and you can hear us go in-depth with a lot of these shows.
Yes, and of course, Tooncast Beyond coming this November.
Yes.
Become a fan on Facebook. Go to facebook.com/geekcastradio network. Call the voicemail line. Tell us what you're leaving the message for and your name. 502-526-5821. We hope you enjoyed this episode of Geekcast Radio. Wish you'll join us next time for when we dive into WWF, WWE through the years, featuring Pop Culture Network's own Dirt. And Kevin and I as well. Yes, I forgot about that. Anyway, for now, I am TFG1 Mike with
Optimus Solo from BehindTheVoiceActors.com.
And Steve Megatron Phillips.
Thank you for listening. Until next time.
You've just heard the GeekCastRadio.com Top 100 Animated Series of All Time wrap-up episode. Stay tuned next time for more exciting topics.